Hi, everyone. I've got chocolate, I got fluffy, and in this heartbreaking chaos of the world now, I'm trying every day to stop for a minute and close my eyes and feel myself sink into my soul's pressure of that love feeling I have for my family and these furry souls, chocolate and fluffy, and for all of you whom I've never met in the matter world. But you encourage and energize me with your heartfelt, encouraging, loving comments and emails and mail and your photos of your cats, your dogs, those of us who love and cherish life. And I want you to feel back from me through the electrons of these Earthfiles channel broadcasts how much I care about you and this dear struggling planet in this revolutionary time. And we all need to worry and care about this planet now more than ever because, quote, the ongoing sixth mass extinction may be the most serious environmental threat to the persistence of human civilization because it is irreversible, close quote. And we are losing a century's worth of species now every year. And I'm going to put these dear life forms down so that I can talk to you tonight about subjects that range from our possible existential moment on the timeline all the way to some surprising revelations about astronauts and Apollo and the moon that have surprised me fundamentally. And so I hope that it will be surprising for you too. Now, the sobering words that I just read with the cats in my lap, loving them, loving life, and feeling that warnings are coming from so many directions, that nothing is normal and everything is changing so rapidly, and that it could be a huge threat that we still don't understand. Those sobering words were published this week by the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in the June 1st, 2020 report entitled, Vertebrates are on the brink as indicators of biological annihilation and the sixth mass extinction. The Academy report further states, quote, thousands of populations of critically endangered vertebrate animal species have been lost in only a century, indicating that this sixth mass extinction is human-caused and accelerating. The acceleration of the extinction crisis is certain because of the still fast growth in human numbers and consumption rates, close quote. And the report emphasizes that the rate at which species are disappearing on our planet now is due directly to the expansion of human civilization that destroys ecosystems. We are now, quote, eroding the capabilities of the planet to maintain human life and life in general, close quote. And this report focused only on 5% of terrestrial vertebrates for which scientists have population data. This analysis did not include plants or aquatic or invertebrate life forms. Dr. Geraldo Ceballos, an ecologist at the National Autonomous University of Mexico and lead author of this new Academy study, said, quote, there is no way this can be continued, wiping out species and putting the whole of humanity in danger, close quote. Although there have been 5 mass extinction episodes during the last 450 million years that were extremely large, each destroyed 70 to 95% of the species of plants, animals, and microorganisms that existed in each of those existential times. Those causes ranged from massive volcanic eruptions to dramatic ocean changes, to the asteroid 65 million years ago that took out most everything, including the dinosaurs that had reigned on Earth for 175 million years. After each major extinction event, it took millions of years to regain numbers of species comparable to those that existed before the particular extinction event. Right now, only an estimated 2% of all of the species that ever lived are alive today. But that has provided the abundant, biologically diverse world that we humans evolved into, starting only 2 million years ago as Homo erectus, and that we now, as Homo sapiens sapien, are destroying. The bottom line is that Homo sapien human survival is no longer guaranteed as more and more species are going extinct. The web of Earth life is interdependent. We need each other. All life on this planet needs each other. And so many creatures are interdependent, and that we depend on this web of life to sustain clean air, clean water, and the plants and animals that have sustained human evolution. Without the whole village of living plants and creatures, humans now face extinction too on that list of the 6th mass extinctions. I once heard astronaut John Young tell scientists at the Lunar and Planetary Institute in Houston, Texas, that we must build bases on the moon and Mars and beyond in order to ensure human survival, given the unstable nature of Earth and the repeated extinction events. In the past few years, I've had whistleblowers tell me that we've had a base on the moon for decades. But it was not until last week that I received information from an Earthfiles viewer who would like me to share with you tonight the surprising information that he heard from a Pentagon military authority. Here is the email that I received on May 30th, 2020 from Terry Norman. Quote, "I would like to speak to you about what I recently found out, why we really went to the moon and what we placed there. My source came from the Pentagon. Due to possibly security issues, I feel the need to communicate with you directly by phone. I know you probably get a lot of strange and weird people contacting you about a lot of bizarre things. I'm not one of them. I'm contacting you specifically because of your background in investigating reporting. You may be able to discover what I'm wanting to tell you is accurate or not. I hope to hear from you. Please don't write me off. Thank you for your attention. Terry Norman," close quote. I followed up with Terry Norman on Monday, June 1st, 2020, this week, and recorded an interview with his permission. I learned that he was born and raised in Fort Worth, Texas. He has a master's degree in music education, but his life evolved into becoming a professional Chinese acupressure massage physical therapist who is now based in Mansfield, Texas, a suburb of Fort Worth. In 1986, Terry studied Chinese medicine in a Shanghai, China hospital. He is a master of the Chinese physical therapy called Tui Na, which means to push, stroke, grasp, and knead acupuncture points in the human body to repair and maintain good health. Here now is what Terry Norman told me this week.
I have a patient who I've been working on for over 10 years. He was in the military. He was Special Forces, a Ranger, a paratrooper, and Green Beret, and did all kinds of secret missions in Vietnam. He was also in the Pentagon, and at the time that he was there, he was the director in charge of displacements of all of our tactical nukes around the world. So as years went on, when I was working on him, and I might ask him, well, what were some of the strange things that you did in Vietnam? He wouldn't tell me anything. He was real tight-lipped. As the years went by and he got to know me more and I worked on him a lot, then he would tell me a little bit here and a little bit there about what he saw and what he did in Vietnam, what things went on in the Pentagon. So after about 10 years of me working with this guy who he's willing to talk about certain things, but if you encroached upon another area, he would just look at you and smile and not respond at all. So I learned to kind of stay away from certain questions. After he retired from the military, he worked with the Civil Corps of Engineers building military bases all around the world. And while he was in the military, in the Pentagon, he had some of the highest clearance that you could get. His wife worked with Army intelligence, and so they were privy to a lot of classified information. It was probably about 6 months ago, before he passed, he came for an appointment, and I had seen some of the new episodes on Ancient Aliens about the UFOs going to military bases and nuclear stockpiles and what were they doing. So I just asked him what he thought of that. And just kind of off the cuff, he looked at me and he said, well, why do you think we've got the communication towers on the moon? And I said, what are you talking about? What communication towers? And he said, why do you think we went there? It wasn't for rocks. And I said, so that's why we see some of the rocks being sold on eBay? He just looked at me and said, yeah, what do you think? And I said, well, tell me about these communication towers. What are they communicating with? He says, well, other worlds. And he was just talking matter of fact, like I should know these things. And I said, what do you mean other worlds? And he said, other aliens on other planets. I said, well, why don't we communicate with them from towers here on the planet? He said, we get better reception there, plus we don't have to worry about sabotage. And I said, so when the rover went 35 kilometers out and 35 kilometers back, they were going out of sight of everybody, and they were building these towers. And he said, of course. And I said, so ever since the 70s, these communication towers have been on the moon that we put there? And he said, definitely. And what got me was that he would say this that nobody else really knows about. They may hear stories here and there, but to actually hear from somebody who worked in the Pentagon, who had high clearance, to tell me, without me asking, what do we have on the moon, that this is what we've got there, and this is why we went there. Now, today, we're getting a little bit of information from astronauts who went to the moon. I guess they feel more secure to be able to divulge some of the stuff that they knew. So we're hearing things like UFOs monitoring our activity up there and photographs of stuff and communications. But for Jack to say that just out of nowhere, it just really caught me off guard. And Jack's not the type of person who would tell a story just to tell a story. He's going to tell you something for a reason, or he's not going to tell you. So my thought was, okay, if this is actually up there, and we've been communicating with worlds for decades now, maybe some people know about this who have access to other people like yourself to do investigating. You've got the experience, and that's why I've come to you, and you know people in military circles. Now, have you ever heard this story before?
We have known about an alien base inside of the moon for decades, and it wouldn't surprise me at all that Apollo was designed to the public, to the excitement of starting a space program, when in fact everything that occurred was controlled by military and the Central Intelligence Agency to do exactly what Jack told you.
Yeah, well, I asked his wife before he died what she thought of that. She said, if Jack said it, you can take it to the bank. Now, I have known for a long time from other sources within secret military and national security that aliens have been here on the planet and are still here.
I want to follow up on that interview with Terry Norman with this book. This is a book that came out this year. It is entitled Selected by Extraterrestrials, Volume 2 by William Mills Tompkins. And it is edited by a colleague and longtime friend of mine who I respect so much, and that is Dr. Robert Wood, who worked at McDonnell Douglas until his retirement in the early 1990s, and his specialty was aerospace engineering. Keep that in mind if you get Volume 1 and Volume 2 of William Mills Tompkins' books. Some parts, you just, could it possibly be? Well, I'm going to show you a couple of things and leave you with kind of a compliment, a really serious compliment from what the military, Jack, told Terry Norman in just a minute. But I would like you to know that I did a 4-hour and 15-minute interview with William Mills Tompkins on May 18th, 2016. He was sharp, intelligent, coherent from beginning to end. And you know what stopped the interview? I think he could have gone on for another 4 hours, and he was 93 years old at the time. Sharp mind, sharp memory. We were interrupted twice by cutoffs. Each time we could reconnect. The third time at 4 hours and 15 minutes into this extraordinary discussion that we were having about his firsthand knowledge of photographs and film and artifacts having to do with extraterrestrial biological entities on this planet and throughout this solar system. We were cut off. I mean, we never could establish phone connection. And he said he figured it was because we were both monitored and somebody decided 4 hours and 15 minutes was enough. But what I was learning from him and what is in this book, as astonishing as it seems, becomes less and less astonishing as time goes on and more people who fall into the category of either whistleblowers or people who had deathbed testimonies, that we are getting what I would consider to be complementary and in some cases confirming information. Now, one of the questions when you read these two books, why did he write them? How could he write them? If he and I were interrupted in our phone interview 3 times, the third, seriously, how could he put the information out in these books that are there? Here's what he told me. He said early in 2001, keep in mind that William Mills Tompkins passed on August 21st, 2017, less than a year after I did the long interview. So now we're going back to 2001 when he was extremely active and physically going on the planet. He said, quote, early in 2001, I called on Admiral Hugh Webster, Navy League Corporate Director, Washington, D.C. and San Diego, California. We had a 5-hour meeting on my ongoing book writing concerning the extraterrestrial threats to our planet. After Admiral Webster read portions of my document and backup technical documentation, I asked him, quote, how much of this can I include in a published book? Close quote. He said, Bill, tell it all. This is most important to our country. Don't leave anything out. That was William Tompkins to me in 2016. And now I want to show you what William Mills Tompkins described for me in that 4-hour and 15-minute interview in 2016. But now in this volume 2, he has done a sketch on page 77, and I'm going to ask Brad to bring it up. He insisted to me during that long interview that we did that he had seen photographs, perhaps video, of craft waiting on the rim of the crater when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin came down in the lander. And that what was the reason for all the dust and Houston saying rocks and they having a 6 or 7 second delay was because the camera would have seen the craft on the rim of the crater. Now, when we did the interview in 2017, he said that there were 3, and he said that they were shaped like silver discs, and that he associated them with a reptilian species. In the book that it was just released this year in February, you can count 6 with a kind of strange faceted design. I do not know what happened between his recorded description that I have in my computer of our entire 4 hours and 15 minutes, where he described them as huge silver discs and associated with reptilians either outside or something. So I don't know what the change in design, was it ordered? They're trying to mix up what were facts? I don't know. But the consistent part of this is that he is writing in the book, and what it was that he told me in the interview is that there were craft on the crater when Armstrong and Aldrin came down in the lander. So now I'm going to read just excerpts, and we'll go now. Brad is asking me, let's go for these excerpts to the back side of the moon. This is a real, beautifully detailed 2017 photograph that was taken. This is the back side of the moon that is now infamous in all of the abductions and investigations that there have been entrances to an alien base inside of our moon, access through the back for centuries, perhaps millennia. Now I'm going to share with you some excerpts from William Mills Tompkins. This is from New Volume 2, pages 77 to 83, only excerpts. Quote, Tompkins, it has been known for thousands of years that the moon is not a planetary moon. It is a hollow moon station that was built out in the galaxy by one of the federations, towed into Earth orbit, and parked with one side only facing Earth. It is just a solar system command center handling situation in this sector of the galaxy. First, it's not our moon. Planet Earth is not our planet. We are just allowed to use it while working for them, a variety of alien intelligences who look at us as slightly above their slave level. The moon and Earth both belong to several entities out there. We must accept that the planet that we live on is just a massive laboratory being used by possibly 100 different entities with hundreds of agendas, one of which is that none of them will help or interfere with us. We really are just a big laboratory down here supporting their agendas. They biologically control us to live this ridiculously short 75-year average lifespan compared to their 300 to 3,000 year lifespans. Some insect species of aliens don't die at all, close quote. I found that such an interesting sentence in the book. He and I never talked about that in the interview. But I have encountered in the abduction syndrome many times where people have said that the praying mantis, when the human is standing in front of an 8-foot-tall praying mantis, they get this huge, overwhelming feeling of something that is so ancient, as Linda Porter told me and is quoted in Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 2, High Strangeness, that what was coming off of the praying mantis to her was deep sadness. And as she felt the deep sadness of this praying mantis creature in front of her and high, what came into her mind was, it's a solar system experiment. He is involved with an entire overview of the solar system. And he knows information about us as a species that makes him very sad. And she told me that she had the impression that the praying mantis could live a quote-unquote lifetime for the age of solar systems. In our case, it would be 10 billion years with our very stable yellow sun. Are they life forms, or is this AI? Going back to William Mills Tompkins. He said, World War II, this is a quote. I've said this before. I've quoted him before on these broadcasts, but I have not quoted him in the context of these 2 volumes. He stressed and told me this in that 3-hour plus interview. Quote, World War II was an extraterrestrial war fought through human bodies. He also described Adolf Hitler and the Nazi SS as conspiring with alien types that were called, he said, Vrilya, VRIL-YA. It was supposed to be a sound that the spelling means. That these were, the Vrilya, were from the planetary solar system of Aldebaran, tall, blonde, and blue-eyed Aryans in the classic description of the Aryans from the Middle East, and that their goal was to take over the earth and enslave certain human populations to do work for them. Allegedly, the Vril force, the VRIL force of World War II, could neutralize gravity that was the key to building Vril craft. They didn't use any kind of drills or some kind of melting or anything like that, that it was all done through neutralizing and specifically focusing gravity as the way to bind the construction of the craft. And that there were extremely large interstellar spacecraft that could go to alleged habitable planets orbiting stars in this and many other galaxies. There was a need to find livable planets, Tompkins explained, because environmental conditions deteriorated on the original Vrilya inhabited planets around one old red binary star, and that was Aldebaran. There was an exodus to find new planetary homes, and the Vrilya ended up in this solar system, where on Earth they found deep underground caverns beneath Antarctica and other parts of this world to inhabit. But their cohabitation for millions of years on Earth has been kept a big secret from the evolving surface populations of various Homo sapiens sapien, except, Tompkins told me, that secret knowledge was shared with and the power given to small elite power broker groups, such as the historic Illuminati, Rosicrucians, Masons, and Bilderbergers. It is as if we came full circle in this hour, that on our planet today we are facing the possibility of existential events because of what is happening to the climate, the instability of the planet, and what has happened cyclically in this solar system. And like astronaut John Young told me in Houston, it was imperative that we get bases on the moon and on Mars and beyond if humanity was going to survive as Homo sapiens sapien. And right now, on this planet, despite COVID, despite political agitation, if you look at the whole huge national security threats as a list, our own government puts at the top of the list global climate change. I'm not sharing this with you tonight to cause sadness or depression. I am sharing it because all of these pieces are really beginning to come and weave a picture that I think is so important for all of us humans, the village of humans. We need to have the truth that the moon has been an observation of this planet for thousands, millions of years. We need to have the truth that the interaction of genetic manipulation in already evolving primates happened because of a series of species of intelligences who found this planet a very good laboratory. And now we are in a state of tremendous agitation, politically and in so many ways. And that out of understanding just this much tonight, I'll throw it to you. If we had all of the truth, if we had had all of the truth for much longer, Mesopotamia and before as a species, but certainly today, if the power brokers would tell us the truth, would the racial tensions subside? Because we know that we are Homo sapiens sapiens. We are a human family no matter what the differences are in size and shape and color and blood. We are Homo sapiens sapien. And somebody made us for a reason. It just seems fair to me. The only fair thing. Let us in on the big secret that the power brokers have had for thousands of years. And maybe humanity would finally stop wars and political and racial strife. In this revolution, I pray that we will finally get that breakthrough, mind-cracking headline. Because by God, we deserve it. We're not alone in this universe. This is a complicated universe. And feel a human hug to all of you. I'm very eager to find out if you think that what I have shared with you in about a half hour is information that you feel is important, that you think it would help you begin to understand more about this planet, or do you think it's still too much? I'd really like your honest answers. And Peggy, let's go to their questions.
Hi, Linda. First, I'd like to thank everybody for their super chats tonight. So if I could thank Cat Chaser, Jones Woods, David Goodrich, Mike Martin, Amy Lou, Stephen G., Rachel Rizzle, Terry M. Hart, Mary Craig, Richard Gmail, Justin C., Christina Willett, Pandora, Greg Madeir, Doreen Garby, S.J. Lawrenson, channeling the heart of Barbara Joyce, and Leanna Jane Norman, sorry. Thank you, everyone.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I just can't thank you enough. And I hope you feel the same way I do. I love this being able to come together and share in this revolutionary time some of what we feel on the inside and what we're coping with on the outside. And with that, Peggy, start out with who has questions, and we'll try to dive in.
I think a great question that relates to tonight's show. Somebody was asking if you've heard of, or do you know if the U.S. government plans on mining the moon?
I would say that Spartan 1 and Spartan 2 already showed and said in My Antarctica, Alien Secrets Beneath the Ice, we've been mining on the moon for a long time. And that's another part of this breaking open information that is coming through whistleblowers, and why, in a way, William Mills Tompkins is sort of almost refreshing, because when you read his two books, there are parts that just seem unbelievable. That's fair. And yet, the more we go forward, there's no question in my mind that we have machines that are mining on the moon. Just like I have no question that the military, Pentagon, retiree and now deceased Jack, he knew back in 1969. We were somehow, the Apollo program was somehow being able to get the beginnings of communications, and what we were doing, and as he said, we've been communicating, which is very consistent with other descriptions of our being in space, in interstellar trade, that the moon we've known for a long time was hollow, that it was somebody else's, that there may have been political tension when humans first started doing launch programs, but that eventually there was some kind of an agreement or a standoff or something. So the idea that what we wanted to do, and that NASA and the Apollo program was the cover, was to get whatever was our most sophisticated communication devices on the moon to get clearer signals with, and that's the question, with what? What have we had? As the Pentagon military Jack told Terry, that we were in communication with other species of ETs. And as Terry Norman, when we talked about it, he said it was the calm, matter-of-fact assumption that I, meaning Terry, must know this, and his saying, of course, no one knows this. So the people who have been in these programs for a long time, I guess sometimes when they get close to transition or retirement, and Jack became ill, quite ill, before he passed, that some part of them, the guard goes down, and they want other humans to know. And doing it this way in terms of talking with somebody who is helping you in physical therapy, talking with somebody who is in a church, those are sometimes the roots in which this information comes. And because it is testimony and firsthand testimony, it still doesn't fall into that category that we all would like to see all of the photographs, all of the videotapes, all of the chemical analyses, all of the medical analyses, all of the autopsies, all of the technology, see the demonstration of neutralizing gravity with an instrument that you can hold in your hands, seeing the demonstration of the creation of invisibility, perfect, absolute perfect invisibility, moving around on the earth and never being seen unless they want to. Or now I believe that our government has learned quite a bit in terms of alien technology, and that we now know how to generate invisibility ourselves. I don't know that we can neutralize gravity to a point, but maybe we can. And the third big part is the projection of holograms that are so perfect that the human eye and mind cannot tell them from our Earth. And when you take everything that I've been exposed to, it always goes back to that statement that that Defense Intelligence Agency analyst told me in December of 1999. Linda, our government has proof that 3 competing extraterrestrial biological entity civilizations have competed and been in conflict with each other over this planet Earth for at least 270 million years. And the reason? It's what William Mills Tompkins says in black and white in his own books. Because Earth is looked at as a laboratory. Deep 2/3 oceans, 1/3 land masses. You can do genetic manipulation and spread your experiments around on islands, peninsulas. It's a laboratory. But hands up. It may be somebody else's laboratory. It's humans' home. Humans' home. And somehow we have to be told the truth so we can grow up and understand how precious this place is. Let's go to another question.
A viewer would love to know, what is the most common ET species that whistleblowers discuss with you?
That's easy. I'm sorry. There's been a storm. And as all of you know, I have allergies. The most common of the categories that I've heard from people who have been in the military and or intelligence always has the same description. Very human-like. Usually no hair, a slightly larger cranium, but very human-looking. And one of the most common phrases that I've always heard and puzzle over is that the ETs that have been so, I guess what we want to say, the chief operators of this system, of the solar system, involved with the moon and Mars and Earth and this particular solar system, and going out beyond, as I've described, if you took a protractor and you put it on our yellow sun, I think we talked about this last week, but it's worth repeating, and you went out 40 light years from our sun, and then you drew a circle, be 80 light years full diameter, 40 light years, there are dozens of yellow spectrum suns, sort of like our sun, and that's unusual. Well, if that's true at an astrophysical level, and that the DIA guy is right about 3 civilizations wanting to use this laboratory planet for at least 270 million years, allegedly proved with information that he said was dangerous for us to know. I don't know what that is. I can't even speculate. But you can sort of begin to get a feeling anyway, a sense that we are the way we are because something did manipulate DNA and already evolving primates, that we reflect what they are, that they use their genetic makeup. And that humanoid type, it's what Spartan 1 said, the photographs that he saw down 2 miles deep under the ice in Antarctica on that extraction mission to get that scientists out who then didn't want to go because there were still thousands of all these carved symbols and glyphs in the solid black basalt that scientist didn't want to leave. Spartan 1 said the photographs were humanoid. No hair, no facial hair, no eyebrows, but very, very human with a bigger cranium, that same description. Then, if that were true, then step back and say, then if they are one of the major power brokers in this solar system region, are the grays mostly artificial intelligence? And if they are mostly artificial intelligence, have their makers ever been here? Are they functioning in between something else and here? And then jump to the Old Testament, and in the Christian Bible, the story of the beginning of humans, Adam and Eve, is in a garden, and the teacher ends up being a serpent. Why is the serpent, the reptile, the teacher of Adam and Eve, the first humans, metaphorically, first humans, on planet Earth? What would the relationship be between the humanoid power brokers, the reptilian power brokers, and the strange AI menagerie of grays? And that's not counting the praying mantises that are 8 feet tall. It's not counting the insects that have been defined in an alleged briefing for President Ronald Reagan at Camp David back in March of 1981. That there was at, I think it was Epsilon Eridani, only 10 light years from Earth, a civilization of very intelligent, 1,000 years advanced beyond us, I believe is what that said, in technology, but insects. And they were considered hostile. Why? Why would insects, whatever they are, at Epsilon Eridani, 10 light years from this solar system and Earth, why would they have any hostility to Homo sapiens sapien on Earth or any life form on Earth? The mysteries are huge. The secrets deep. Deliberately, information has been kept from us, and like the shell game, information that is actually true gets hidden under a whole bunch of other, like sigils, or sigils, as some of you pronounce it. It's like a metaphor of sigils. You have layers of numbers, layers of letters, and then you have layers of diagrams. And you have to have a very specific key to look at the diagram on top to know what's being described in the layers of letters and numbers. It's sort of like what we're in and what we're up against. So I look at our trying to understand the truth as, if whistleblowers want to help an investigative reporter and producer, as I am, I am open to looking at documents, film, video, whatever that can be provided that might shed some light on this information tonight, and that I feel it's patriotic duty to try to open up these big secrets that have been secret too long. And people who argue it's too dangerous because there are hybrids among us, because sperm and eggs are harvested from this planet to create more clones, to create more humanoid bodies, as if suggesting that there is a biological evolutionary issue with the aliens that harvest the eggs and the sperm from this planet. And my answer always is the same. I don't care what you throw at me as this is what's going on and humans could never take it. They would all fall apart. The planet would implode if they were told the truth. I think that's wrong. I think knowing all the truth about the strange history of humanity and secret organizations and the avatars of history on this planet might be the only step that would free us from all of the wars and perhaps even racial tensions. That would be something. So, I've got time for one more question, and I will try to stay short.
I don't know if you can. This is a great question. What is the best evidence that proves the existence of aliens that you could use to argue with skeptics?
The first thing that jumped into my head: bring a veterinarian, bring a chemist, bring a pathologist of any kind, bring medical people, bring science people to the animal mutilations that I have investigated, in which the collagen is cooked, the hemoglobin is cooked, that there are hearts removed from inside pericardiums in chests of animals that had no surgical excision. And then tell me, how was this done? That's number one. Number two, the bismuth, magnesium, zinc layered metal. It was built atom by atom at the atomic level. The magnesium, the bismuth layers, the bismuth and magnesium, and the magnesium has a little zinc in it. They alternate in micron layers, and as I have told you on this program before, that a physicist that I know worked on a slab of this material underground at S4 Area 51 back in the early 1970s. He was able to know from work that was already being done with some collaboration, perhaps with ETs even then, that the whole key was the placement of monoatomic iridium at atomic levels in the aluminum of the craft, and then it would, in the bismuth, magnesium, zinc, there were also atomic structure that made the whole thing resonate together in parallel skins, that when it was activated, it would neutralize gravity. All inertial physics would stop. As of today, it still has not been generated or made, well, at least out in the white world. The white world still has not been able to build the terahertz generator that is supposed to be the frequency, which if you can control it, if you can control the high terahertz frequency that bismuth, magnesium, zinc in one skin and aluminum with the iridium in another skin parallel, exposed to terahertz frequencies, automatically take away gravity. I mean, those are sentences that have been said to me. And if we can't, at this point in 2020, if humans at the most sophisticated physics levels, I've worked with Jacques Vallée on this, I've worked with Howe on this, and then I've had quite an education from the physicist. And if we can't do the physics now, that to me, in a way, the absence of being able to produce what has been described in detail could happen if we could work at the atomic level. The inability to do that says that this bismuth, magnesium, zinc is not something the humans in the white world or white labs understand or can make. And so all of that together, the bismuth, magnesium, zinc, and the animal mutilations without a single excision in the chest, with an entire heart missing, sometimes inside of a pericardium and sometimes not. Meaning sometimes the pericardium is left with no cuts in it, and that means the heart was extracted at some kind of a molecular level from inside the pericardium, that is the transparent sac that surrounds the heart. And there's been more than one such case. Those are, in my estimation, the two strong reasons why, when sheriffs told me back in 1979, Linda, the perpetrators are creatures from outer space, they were right. But why? On that, till next week, stay safe. Try to find that love pressure in your soul and exercise it in a planet that needs help. I love you guys.